This is a learning journey, and I want to take you on this journey. And you're going to be able to explore the world and see the world in a different way.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our first webinar for 2021. My name is David Stevens. I'm coming to you from Australia. I'm one of the team members at the Body Language Academy by Joe Navarro, where I'm a partner, the senior mentor and the program manager. And it's great to see so many people joining us today for this great webinar. And now the theme is, of course, Ask Joe a Question. So we're going to do some exciting things. We've got some questions that people have already sent in. We're also going to be looking at a couple of videos and analysing them. And we'll, of course, be taking questions from participants. So you can write questions as we go, and we'll sort of raise them with Joe as we go along. But first of all, I'd like to also welcome Nadia Et, who is joining us from Denmark. Nadia is the CEO and co-founder of the Body Language Academy by Joe Navarro. Good morning, Nadia.
Hello, David. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us. We are very excited. I will be following the live chat, and I am so excited to see your questions and read them. And Joe will be answering as many as possible, and you can ask him anything about body language. So take this great opportunity to ask world-leading body language expert, Joe Navarro.
Thanks, Nadia. And of course, Joe, everyone knows Joe, ex-FBI special agent, spy catcher. You've written 13, almost 14 books, Joe, and you've done a lot of speaking around the world. Good morning. You're coming to us from Florida. How are things in Florida?
I am, and thank you both, David and Nadia. It's always good to see you both, and welcome to everyone. We are being joined, I think, from every continent, so this is very exciting. Here in Florida, it's an absolutely gorgeous day. So if you're having snow or winds where you're at, I must say today's just an absolutely beautiful day, and I'm looking forward to it. This is my opportunity to say hello to everybody and really to thank everybody who participates, who reads my books, who follows on Twitter and Facebook, and obviously who has been tuning in through the Body Language Academy. And we're also welcoming some of our students who are also graduates of the program. So it's always good to see them also. I hope everyone is safe, and I hope everyone is healthy. I know the last year has really been transformative, and one of the things that really has stood out was or is the fact that perhaps now more than ever, nonverbal communications, body language is so critical. We have literally gone from a time when we were on telephones to now, I think more than 90% of my meetings are virtual. We want to see each other's faces. We want to understand each other's faces. We want to be able to gather that same information we used to through face-to-face meetings, now through this very small screen. So there have been significant changes, but I think the one that has stood out the brightest is how do we read each other when we have this smaller screen, and its importance, and the realization that before we were picking up a lot of information subconsciously, but now we're trying to think and analyze behavior to try and interpret. And that to a great extent, this is what the Body Language Academy is all about, is how do we understand each other? How do we read each other? How do we comprehend each other? What are those gestures? What are their meanings? And what is intended? So I want to obviously open it up to questions. I know, David, you have some, but we're also going to look at some videos, which I'm excited to do, because I think that always helps with the learning. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, I can see the questions are already pouring in, which is great. And I apologise, we're never going to get to all the questions that we might like to in one session. We've only got an hour here this evening or this morning, depending on where you are in the world. But I thought one way that we would be able to get an idea of what everyone would like to talk about is to run a quick poll. So I'm going to launch a poll, and when you have a look at this list, this is a short list of some of the themes of questions that people have sent in. And so I'd like everyone to vote for their top 3 questions they'd like answered by Joe today. So you can see the poll running there. So please vote for your top 3 questions, and that will give us a bit of an idea of what people would like to hear about. Just because we've got so many people there and we're not going to get to everyone's questions, this is a good way to get a bit of a feel for what people would like. So I'll let that run for about another 20 seconds or so as we see how people go. And I must say, Joe, that we've got a number of students, and a lot of them, Nadia and I, have both mentored, and it's been a real pleasure seeing how they've been using body language in their professional and their private lives for a whole range of different outcomes. So that's been really good.
Well, as you know, I talk to every student that graduates from the program, and it's a real eye opener to see. I mean, everyone from PhD candidates to surgeons to police officers to students who have taken the program, how it has changed not only their ability to communicate, but also how much more precisely and how much quicker they can perceive the thoughts and the feelings and even the fears and concerns of others. And I think that's key to communication, is that the quicker we can make that breakthrough of, this person needs my help, or this person is struggling with something, the better that we are as empathetic individuals. So it's always great to talk to them. I enjoy those post-graduation chats that I've had with them. They're enlightening. And to their backgrounds, I mean, we have everything. We have seen everything from graduate students to, as I said, surgeons and individuals with degrees in psychology, and as well as people starting out who are just wanting more information about how to communicate nonverbally. And I think the program is set up so it's both it's hard enough that it challenges you, but it's also interesting enough to, even with advanced degrees, that you get something from the program. So yeah. How is that poll looking?
Here are the results. As you can see there's quite a bit of interest. I think our front runner is that bottom one there about staying safe in dangerous situations, closely followed by, you've already mentioned it. How do you read body language during video teleconferencing? And then the follow-up from there is dating, I think. Yes. How you
so let me just jump on it, because we have so little time. from an early age, we're taught to look, but we're really not taught to observe. Your parents didn't teach you really to observe. They taught you to look and see if traffic is coming. There's a big difference between looking and observing. And one of the things that I learned early on in law enforcement work was this critical criteria that to observe the world around us, to have situational awareness, requires greater effort. But that's only initially. And so, everything from the minute you walk outside, smelling the air, literally yesterday as I walked outside my house, I could smell that there was sort of burning oil in the air, and somebody's lawnmower had caught on fire a few blocks down, and I could smell it. And your senses begin to take in the world. I can see every car on the street. I can see, the people in the car. You begin to pick out the colors of the car. You see who's driving. Are they paying attention, or are they driving while looking at a phone, which is illegal, and yet some people still do that. And you notice the subtleties of the world around you, and that's just the objects. But then when it comes to people, when you become a really good observer, and that's what the academy is all about, it's about picking up the details of, for instance, the frequency of how much or how often a person touches their face, their blink rate. Why are they ventilating their collar when they're asked a question? Little things that most people don't pay attention to. Once you learn to observe, then it becomes a habit, and you don't really have to think about it. People say, well, does this wear you down? Not really, because once you know what to look for, then it just sort of flows. It's like software that runs in the background, and it's very effective and very powerful when you can look at a room and you're able to assess that whole room. That's of tremendous advantage. Now, when it comes to nonverbals and dating, one of the examples that I often give is when people ask me, well, what's the importance of body language? And I said, well, I don't know about where you're born. Where I'm born, babies are born, without talking. Parents, mothers in particular, learn to read the body language. That little squirm, that little gesture means I'm uncomfortable, or I need to eat, and so forth. And so the primacy of nonverbals is not just in taking care of each other as a species, but also, for instance, our security. How do we assess for danger? How do we assess for, which was the question, and that is, we assess for danger non-verbally. I mean, when I'm at the ATM machine, I don't turn around and ask the person behind me, are they up to no good? I assess them for, what are they doing? Who are they? How close are they? And things like that. It is still non-verbally the primary way that we assess for danger. And one of the easiest ways, if you're walking down the street and you change directions and you find that somebody is vectoring in the same way that you are, then this may present you with a dangerous situation. And in fact, this happened to one of our FBI agents in New York. She thought somebody was following her, and so she immediately crossed the street. The suspect then crossed the street. She crossed back. He did also. And in fact, he took out a gun and was going to rob her, not knowing she was an FBI agent. And she neutralized that target. But the other thing is, and the third area where we use nonverbals is, dating. Dating around the world, except for perhaps maybe when marriages are arranged. Dating primarily is a nonverbal display, whether as we see in countries in Africa where the men dress up, paint their faces, and they don these very elaborate costumes, and they jump up and down to demonstrate their physicality, to dressing up to go to a Las Vegas show. It's all about the nonverbals, and even the interpersonal nonverbals, where two people are making eye contact repeatedly, and then there's the gestures of interest, where, for instance, you're not only visually making contact, but you're showing more of your ventral side and even the insides of the wrist. These are demonstrative of interest in each other. So whether you're using this for security purposes, for interpersonal communication, for business, I think it's very accurate that no day goes by that we don't use nonverbals. It's almost impossible not to be using nonverbals, and so the better we do it, the more effective, obviously, we will be.
Yeah, that's great, Joe. If maybe if I can follow up, we had one question from Janet in the United States, and it was around the staying safe in dangerous situations. You've talked about being a good observer, but perhaps can you also talk about our own body language and how we can carry ourselves so that we're less likely to become a target? I know there's been some interesting studies done in that area.
I'm happy to. And before anybody remarks on my body language of touching my eye, I have my allergies this time of year are terrible in Florida. So going back to studies that were done in 1968, where we, scientists looked at talking to muggers and said, well, when you look at somebody to mug, what do you look for? And what they said was, we look for individuals that look like they can't defend themselves. We look for individuals that don't want to make eye contact, that walk small, that have very small gestures with their arms. The larger their the arm swing, the stronger we perceive them. And so even our body language can help to thwart for instance, the United States Secret Service. One of the things you'll always see is that their hands are in the ready position. So I'm going to elevate it here a little bit, but their hands are always up here. And what they have found is that most people will not come at them or threaten in any way when they see the hands in the ready position. And so this is something that we can mirror, as well as standing up taller and making that eye contact with anybody potentially coming at you, where you can look at them and let them know that you're onto them. So there are things that we can do, and obviously space, right? So we often think of having our space violated and making us uncomfortable, but one of the easiest things to do to keep yourself safe is, if you see someone, and this has happened to me. I was getting into a car, and these two men were approaching me, and they were about 4 or 5 meters away, and I immediately put my hand up high, fingers spread out very wide, and I say, stop right there. Do not get any closer. And they kept talking, wanting to get closer, and I kept raising my voice, and I said, do not step any closer. And I just felt unsafe. And And I think this is something that we can do, that our space is precisely that, our space. Keep people further away from you, the less likely you are to be victimized. I think it was no, not I think. In my book, Dangerous Personalities, I said you have no social obligation ever to be victimized. So if somebody's getting too close to you and it offends them, well, that's unfortunate, but you have no obligation to be victimized. And the easiest way to victimize someone is to get within their personal space. And so I say, keep that space and go from there.
Yeah, that's great.
We have so many questions come in, great questions. So let's take a couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe, this one is, when we want to bring someone nervous out of their shell, should we mirror them or should we display open and comfortable body language?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking that. There are many times when a situation will make us nervous. One of the things that I always tell people is, if you're nervous, front it. Tell the other person, I feel really nervous. I've been in job interviews where I probably didn't have any reason to be nervous, but I was. And I just say, well, I'm not sure why, but I feel a little nervous. But the other thing that we can do is, a lot of times nervousness is caused by the way we're looking at each other. So very front to front, sitting with a lot of eye contact causes stress. So one of the easiest ways that I found to relieve the stress in others, especially when I was an FBI agent, people would get very nervous around us, is to angle my body and not make so much eye contact with them, so that they don't feel that intimidation. And rather than me mirroring them as being nervous, one of the things that you can do is, for instance, you can take a deep breath and exhale and then say, well, I just have a few questions. And what happens is, we humans, our species seeks homeostasis. So we seek to be comforted. When we see someone do what's called a cathartic exhale, subconsciously we look at that and we will try to mirror that. So the person that's stressed will see that and they will begin to calm down. And I learned this years ago, working at the Naval Hospital in Puerto Rico at Roosevelt Roads. And I was taught by an emergency room surgeon. And he says, when they come in with their family, they're all stressed. And if you say calm down, they'll never calm down. The way to do it is, because I was there as an EMT, is you take a deep breath, you exhale, and watch how everybody else does the same thing, and it has this effect. So here's a nonverbal that we can display, which gets other people to calm down, along with avoiding a lot of eye-to-eye contact, and as you're seeing me do, using more of a head tilt to get them to calm down. So great question.
I've got one more here from Hans from the Netherlands. How would you rate intuition versus training as in talent in observing?
Yeah, good question. Intuition, I don't like that word, because intuition is what we ascribe to what we have not studied at length. So your brain, deep within your brain, right below the thinking brain, the neocortex, is the limbic system, and it's exquisitely elegant. It is assessing the world around you, and has for a very long time. the fact that you may not be able to articulate what you observe does not mean that your limbic system isn't assessing for it. Somebody violates your space from behind and you feel uncomfortable. Now, you may not be able to articulate that, or somebody stares at you without blinking and it makes you nervous. You may not be able to articulate it, but your limbic system is picking up on this. And this is the elegance of the limbic system. Gavin de Becker, in his book, The Gift of Fear, spoke about this. And so what you perceive as being intuitive, no, these are things that are hardwired in your brain that you are prepared to assess for, though you may not be able to articulate it. Now, does that mean it's always right? That is also a question, because I remember when my daughter would at night sneak up on me and spook me, and and obviously I'm reacting to it, even though I recognize her voice. And the point of that is this: the limbic system doesn't think, it reacts, and it is quick, it is efficient, but it can be mistaken. But it is the primary system upon which we survive. So it's not like we can undo it. But I think most of the time, those feelings that we get that this doesn't seem right, this person doesn't seem trustworthy, or even those gut feelings that we get, that this person just they don't seem like they're being honest with us. You have to remember, your stomach is full of neurons. I mean, the same neurons that are in your brain. You can look this up when this conversation is over. We have neurons in the brain, and they are sending signals to the brain through the vagus nerves, and we are perceiving the world, and we're reacting to the world. And I think it's a mistake not to listen to that. What the academy can do for you is elevate you to the point where you can observe the behavior and say, I am reacting and feeling this way because of these specific observations. And therein is the great difference.
Now, Joe, if I can sort of go from there, we talk about the comfort, discomfort sort of paradigm, and that's often what we're looking for. There's a couple of questions that ask about how do we then go from understanding what they're thinking and feeling, what their intentions might be. So would that be, I mean, there's some gestures that might have some meaning directly, but would you care to sort of comment on or expand on that, how you go from comfort, discomfort to knowing more? Is it through questioning? Is it through something else?
Yeah. So, throughout any kind of interaction, we're going to see body language. Just the other day, even though we were maybe 30 or 40 feet apart, while I was walking my dog, I ran into a neighbor, and we're talking across the street to each other. And I could tell from her face that she was stressed. There was just, there was a lot of lip compression. And when she said hi, the hand didn't go up as high as it usually does. And so I sensed that something was wrong. And so after I said, good morning, how are you? I asked, is everything okay? And then she began to tell me some things that had happened to a family member. And so a lot of times we see a display of discomfort, and it may be relevant to something the person has just experienced. It's not always caused by us. So I think it's useful to ask, is everything all right? How's your day going? And so forth. That you can only push so hard. And then there's other times we see behaviors of, where they need to go. And obviously, if they're looking at their watch, that's the easiest one. But one of the subtlest one is you're talking to the person, all of a sudden their foot orients towards a direction they want to go in. And this is extremely authentic and accurate, that they're telegraphing, hey, nice to talk to you, but I got to get to work. And so we use nonverbals to, at a minimum, assess for comfort and discomfort. And obviously, people will communicate with you more if there's a high degree of comfort, and we can create that through tone of voice, through our gestures, something as simple as when we greet each other, using the arching of the eyebrows, the eyebrow flash to greet each other, so that they feel more welcome. So we use it to communicate, but we also use it to assess. And for me, people always ask, are you looking for deception? No, absolutely not. It's a complete waste of my time. What I look for is the person comfortable or uncomfortable? And if I see discomfort, I want to know, can I help? Is there an issue? Do we have to cut the meeting short? Do you have to go? Did you have problems in parking? Any kind of thing like that. But that's what we really use nonverbals for.
Thank you for covering that, Joe, because we had quite a lot of questions around detecting deception. But to also cover another area of body language, courtship behavior, we have a question here from Joanna from Turkey. So how do men show sexual interest in women? Are there some specific signs?
Well, this is a universal question. And, we have any number of behaviors that start at a very young age, with something so simple as, I'm going to spend or try to spend more time with you than somebody else. This is, my neighbors, they would come over and say, hey, can Joe go play? So now we're, now we're friends. And at some point, this transitions from your usual playmates to the opposite sex. And every culture has these things where, when we talk to each other maybe more softly. As I said before, there's more head tilt. We engage in greater eye-to-eye contact. Subconsciously, you may not realize it, but when we're in the presence of a loved one, our pupils dilate. Your limbic brain picks up on that. You'll see more preening behaviors, right? So preening is where, men fix their jacket or their clothes. Maybe they fix their hair and so forth. There's more eye contact, repeated eye contact, and it shifts from looking at someone to gazing at someone. And one of the things you'll learn in the Body Language Academy is the difference between looking, observing, and then gazing. Because what happens is, when we gaze at others, we're also simultaneously transmitting information of comfort, right? So when we observe a criminal, we're not transmitting comfort. But when we're gazing at somebody, we learn to relax the face and sort of reward that other person with our nonverbals. And so that's one of the things that happens. And then in almost all cultures, the men will dress up more, the women will dress up more. There'll be more of the self-fixing, preening behaviors to make each other look and appear more healthy. And literally more interested, as well as often you'll see behaviors to demonstrate physical prowess. So often you'll see boys showing off or demonstrating different things so that they will get notice. One of the things that I'm often asked about is, well, when women touch their hair, does that mean they're interested? And what's curious is, it depends on how they touch their hair. So for instance, if they touch their hair, but their wrist is outward, they're not as interested in the person as when the underside is facing the person. So if they're playing with their hair like this, we only display the wrist, the inside of the wrist, when we're really interested in other people. So these are some of the little secrets that are covered in the course, but they're of immediate significance, because you can sort of cut to the chase, know with greater authority what precisely it is that you're observing, and that's what we teach.
Yes.
Yeah,
One more here from Moya, David.
yeah, go for it.
Are there any obvious body language cues to quickly spot signs of narcissism and psychopathy?
So, yeah, that's a profound question. You know, the questions relating to both psychopathy and narcissism, we certainly don't have enough time to cover that. One of the things you notice, because if we're looking at the true psychopath, so we're looking at what's defined by Robert Hare, not just antisocial behavior, but your true psychopath will try to dominate your space, your time, your thinking, and your movements. And so any behavior that is produced by the individual to make you feel threatened, so like you feel like you can't leave, to feel like you can't object to what they're saying, that you feel over dominated by them, these kinds of behaviors we can aggregate, bring together, and say, yeah, this looks like someone who is pathological. I would say, I mean, I've interviewed psychopaths where one of the things that stands out is they're very, what we call flat affect, where they're describing horrific things, but they're describing it as though they're reading from a newspaper. And so, yeah, that's a very profound question. But I would tell you that because both the malignant narcissist and the psychopath do so much great harm, that one of the things that you have to be always mindful of is your space, that both will try to control and dominate your space and the people that you can have contact with. And so you want to make sure that you have freedom to do both. Okay, if I can, going back to a question that was asked, because I don't want anyone to come away from our program. Our program is probably the only program in the world that that tells the truth about body language and nonverbal communication and deception. There are a lot of programs out there that are prattling a lot of false information about detecting deception. And we're the only program that I'm aware of that emphasizes what science teaches about detecting deception, and how utterly restrained we are in what we can say, that we must not confuse nonverbal displays of psychological discomfort with deception. And so this is one of the things that differentiates us from everyone else. And of course, it's helpful that over the career where I was able to do somewhere around between 10 and 13,000 interviews, that we can use that information that was gleaned from that I used to testify in court to help us to see, well, then how do we use nonverbals? If we don't use it to detect deception, then what do we use it for? And there are alternate uses and even more powerful uses of nonverbals.
That's great, Joe. We've probably got time, I think, for a look at that video, which I think will be worthwhile. And in fact, this is a video that we've taken from the course. A number of people have asked us, what is on the course. So this is an example of one of those videos, but we're going to play it without the sound on. So let me just share.
While you're keying that up, the reason we play it with sound, this is how I do analysis. When I'm doing analysis for the intelligence community or anybody else, I never see it with the sound on. I only watch the nonverbal so that my perceptions aren't skewed. And what I'd like for you to do is notice the changes in behavior and then try to catalog in your own mind those changes and those behaviors that are so critical. So yeah, please roll it. So here she's asking a question, and I'm sort of the passive listener. And then you see my first reaction is to move away from her. And then I do a cleansing gesture where I bring my hands across the lap. Now, in a lot of interview settings, people miss that because there's a table or a desk in the way. Now, my feet haven't moved too much. In fact, one of my feet is very, very close to her. But you see a lot of facial touching. You see a lot of self-touching on my part, especially the upper legs and so forth. And by the way, one of the ways that we ventilate is by pulling on our socks. And now you saw my hands intertwined, and it was in a weird way where a finger sort of was sticking out. And one of the things that I've noticed over the years, one of the things that we cover in the class is anytime we pretzel our body, anytime we pretzel like a pretzel, our hand gestures or our arm gestures, this is indicative of a high degree of distress. And here we see the teepee hands, where the fingers are in the shape of the sticks that stick out of a teepee, that are also indicative of high degree of psychological discomfort.
That's some great observations there, Joe. So I guess, what would people who are observing, do you think be able to take away from that as, what is the first thing that people should be looking at when they're observing something like this? Should it be the face? Should it be the hand? Should it be the feet? What would you say there?
Well, as you know, in the program at the Body Language Academy, we teach you observe the whole body. There's too much emphasis on the face, and true, you see the furrowed glabella that I do, you see the cathartic exhale where I go, and all of that. But most of my behaviors, the significant ones, are with my hands. The moving my hands across my lap, that's a self cleanser. The touching, trying to touch my socks, the intertwining of my fingers awkwardly. These are all saying I am bothered by the questions that are being asked of me. And you are in real time seeing how I am processing the question that is asked. What is required? There you see the furrowing of the glabella, the little area. All these behaviors are communicating, and it was all initiated by the question that was asked, which you don't get to hear, but it doesn't matter. The fact is that these behaviors come on board the minute she begins to ask me questions. And so why am I so bothered by these questions? So as I look at these tapes, what I do is I note with particularity each behavior in time. And then once I have aggregated all the behaviors, you see my fingers pressing on my hand. My right leg was bouncing up and down. My shoulders have sort of come up a little bit. all of these things are communicating that something is not right. It has nothing to do with deception, but something is not right. Now, my job is to articulate them, and then, and only then, can we go back and listen to what was said. The biggest mistake I see is people, and this is one of the things we learned from the class, is that people immediately want to hear what's said and then break out the behaviors. And that's the wrong way to do it, because by listening to what is said, you've already tainted what your observations are going to be.
Joe, for people who want to learn more about body language, we have several people asking if there are any requirements or they need previous training to join the program.
That's a great question. And I would tell you that we have had everything from high school students who were provided access to the program from their parents, all the way to 75-year-olds who just are lifelong learners. There is no requirement that you have any prior training. The only requirement that we have is that you keep an open mind, that you be prepared to learn what science teaches us, to put aside all those preconceived notions that you may have learned about. You know, one of the biggest myths out there is that if we cross our arms, we're keeping people away, and that's totally false. This is a self-hug. It's a self-soothing behavior. All that we ask is that you have an open mind. People like yourself, people like David, and the other trainers who work with each student individually, you know, people that have been trained by me, help them to, you know, the purpose of the course is for you to be able to learn and to put this to use. It's not, our purpose isn't to fail people. Our purpose is to educate people, but also to be able to apply it immediately. And that's what we strive to do in the course. So it doesn't matter where you are. As I said, we've taken on high school students and everything else in between.
That's great. We've probably got a time for just maybe one or two more questions. Nadia, what have we got from the participants?
We have got one great question here. How to remove my bias and make neutral and objective observations. Is there anything to add to that? Do you have some tips for that, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times we are biased in that we haven't been taught particularity. I'll give you an example. When I go to when I go to study primates at the zoo, I can't tell them apart. To me, all the monkeys look the same, and yet the zookeeper can say, well, that's Alvin and that's Roger. And it was like, how do you do that? And that's because they've been taught to observe with particularity. One of the easiest ways to get rid of, to dispel the problems of bias is to be able to observe with particularity so that you have greater clarity in seeing the behavior, in seeing exactly with greater confidence that this is a threat, this is not a threat, that this is a behavior indicative of lack of understanding or hesitation rather than something else. So one of the easiest ways to sort of unburden yourself, as I tend to do, when I go and visit these primates, is to be able to differentiate with particularity. And I'm sure if you've gone to an aquarium and seen dolphins, they all look alike to you, and yet the trainers know which one is which is but then that's what happens when we're taught to observe, not just to look.
We have several hundred questions here, which obviously we can't cover today, but thank you so much for being so passionate about learning about body language and dedicated to that. Maybe we should take a couple of key points from the program, David.
Well, as we're summoning this up, I want to thank everybody that has taken the time to participate with us. And as you consider this program, think of it as lifelong learning and how to enhance the skills that you already have, but also to bring on board additional skills. So I thank you for the opportunity. David, I'll let you take over.
Thanks, Joe. And Nadia, do you want to talk about the opportunity that we've got at the moment?
Yes, so it is a 3 to 6 month course with exclusive content, one-to-one with Joe, your own personal mentor assisting you through your learning journey, a global network, and because of the COVID situation, the serious situation, we have chosen to give a 30% discount. This is the first time ever. If you use the code COVID30, we hope to have many of you join the Academy and join us and begin this amazing learning journey where you will see the world in a different way. Mm-hmm. So go to our webpage, www.jnbodylanguageacademy.com.
And thank you to everyone that's joined us today. It's great to have so many enthusiasts, people that are really interested in body language and learning more about it and hearing from Joe's experiences. So we look forward to seeing you either as part of the Body Language Academy or at the next webinar that we're doing. So thank you to everyone, and to everyone, have a great day.
Stay safe.